But the result is always the same. That type of speaking spreads like gangrene. It infects the community. And eventually, it kills it. So Paul says to Timothy, guard against that. Guard against that in the community because it's going to destroy it. And guard against it in yourself. Because if godless chatter leads others away from Jesus, what do we think godless chatter and quarreling and stupid arguments does to our faith? Paul picks this up in verse 24. The Lord's servant must not quarrel, but must be kind to everybody, able to teach, not resentful. Those who oppose him, he must gently instruct. In other words, don't go Gordon Ramsay on the people that you disagree with in the community of faith. Do your best to present yourself as one who correctly handles the gospel message. To be one who has it deep within your heart, who feeds upon it yourself. Because the gospel message is not a club to beat people over the head with. It is an invitation to meet the living God. Present yourself as somebody who follows the leading of the gospel message. Paul says, pursue righteousness and faith. Pursue your relationship with God. Deepen your faith. Make sure that Christ is Lord of your life and that you are desiring to follow him and live your life in service to him. Right? The whole bit about the vessels or the utensils, there are some vessels set for special purposes and some that are special for normal purposes. That's not what all this is about. Be holy. Be set apart for honorable use. We are to see ourselves as set apart for God, for every work that God calls us to. So Paul says, pursue faith. Pursue righteousness. Not just in our lives, but also in our speech. But also pursue love and peace. Pursue love and peace in your relationships with each other. Make sure that those around you, particularly in the community of faith, are able to experience the love of the community and the love of Jesus. There's a wonderful depiction of this in Dr. Seuss's book, The Zacks. I don't know if anybody's read it. It's not a very well-known book, but it's fabulous. It's a story of a north-going Zacks and a south-going Zacks that meet together in the desert of Prax. And of course, having confronted each other, the north-going and the south-going, they are locked in an insolvable battle. Because neither of them are willing to stand aside and extend grace to the other person to let the other person pass. So they just stand there, the entire book, yelling at each other how the other person is wrong. And they talk about how they are going to stand still until the whole world stands still, and they're not moving. And the last scene is a fabulous picture, and I think a kind of a frightening picture, particularly for the church, of the two creatures locked in battle as the world, which didn't stand still, finds inventive ways to navigate around them. Right? Our quarrels, our stupid arguments, it pushes people away. But also for those two creatures locked in battle, too busy yelling at each other than to step aside and offer grace and love and peace, they are no longer living out their ministry. They're no longer living out their identity. Because the north-going Zacks is no longer north-going. He's immovable. And the south-going Zacks is no longer south-going. Because they are stationary. They are stagnant. Too busy yelling at each other to extend grace and peace. The ministry that Jesus calls us to is a ministry by which we attempt to draw other people into a relationship with the God who loves them and redeems them. It's a ministry that we join into through the Spirit of God, which is alive in the church and in the world. Paul says God's firm foundation still stands. His seal is upon it. Right? Jesus says the gates of hell will never prevail against the church. God will always act within the community of the faithful people. The question is, are we going to be a part of it? We are to be kind to everybody, able to teach, not resentful. It can be a delicate balance by which we remain open and truthful and bold about our faith and about what we believe and who we are, but we do so in a kind and gentle way. Sadly, I think that there are people who think that it is their job to tell other people that they're wrong. Right? Go onto YouTube and you can find thousands of videos about street preachers in California, in Hollywood, in LA, and all this kind of stuff, who stand on their soapboxes and describe how certain groups of people are going to hell. And you know what? There's a lot of groups of people. Because if you define everybody else as not with me, there's a whole lot of people that you can describe. Is the community encouraged by that? I don't think so. Paul says to be kind. Be able to defend your belief, yes, but be gentle. Be without remorse, vitriol, or anger. Speak in the hope that God, who is able to do more than we can ask or imagine, will bring people to a knowledge of himself. Paul says in the hope that God will grant them repentance, which means turning around, changing their mind. That whole idea of repentance, people changing their mind, turning their course, that's God's domain. That's God's work. Are we an attracting force for the church, for God, or are we a repelling one? This is so important to the life of faith, the life that we are called to. This is so important to the ministry that we have. It is so important to the very nature of what it means to be the church, that it affects that which is so simple as the words that come out of our mouths. They matter. They matter to God, they matter to our faith, and they matter to the faith of other people. So may the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be always pleasing to the Lord, who is our rock and our salvation.